So what did you see in this podcast that you knew would...
What did I hear in this podcast?
That too, yeah. What did you appreciate that you knew that this could translate to the
Well,
screen?
at first I just appreciated the podcast because two of my favorite things are nonfiction, historical stories, and horror. And it's the perfect hybrid of both. And then I was actually approached by the people at Propagate, by BP and Ben and Howard, say, we've optioned this. Is this something you'd be interested in? And I jumped at the chance. I mean, of course, I jumped before I knew quite how we would do it. And as you may have heard already, the other key ingredient was Glenn Morgan, our showrunner, who was already such a fan of the podcast that he'd met Aaron. And when we called him up and said, are you available? He said, I have this brief window between X-Files, and he came on board. And then, we worked with two documentary producers. I don't know if you heard about them, John Halpern and Mark Minucci. And it really was a team effort more than anything else I've ever done.
And is it a thrill to to create these mini movies? Like, you've spent so much time, telling one long form story and developing it over years. So what is it like to do these short movies, and telling?
It's really hard. It's really hard because, you get, in a feature film, you can get, a year, 9 months of pre-production, and then you get 100 and some odd days to shoot it. Our episodes ranged in length from 2 to 4 days. And because they're anthology, we had art department and wardrobe having to create entirely new environments for us to film this. And we used different looks. One of the episodes is in black and white. So while there were incredible opportunities, there were enormous challenges.
Will that inhibit going further, or how many episodes you could possibly do for a season, or do you think?
Well, if we have enough pre-production time, we can be really smart about it, so that we can film in an area like we did this season, where a lot of the locations were within, striking distance of each other. Because if you're only shooting for 2 days or 4 days, you can't have so many locations that you have to move multiple times in a day. So it really has to be, the scheduling has to be, very precise and a science.
So thinking in today's television, with so many TV shows and so many different TV shows, what do you think lore brings to the scene?
Well, I think the great thing about lore is no one's ever seen anything like it. Not only is it an anthology, but it's a mixed medium. And the fact that Aaron's podcast already has 6.5 million listeners per month, there's great awareness out there. And that's incredibly helpful because you've got people who, you don't have to get them up to speed on why this is worth watching because they've been listening to it avidly for a couple of years. There are a lot of different options out there, but as a streaming show, it's only going to take you 6 hours, to watch them all. So I don't think that's, it's not like, it's a little harder with The Walking Dead now going into its 100th episode, that if you're starting now, you have 99 hours
My son did
to catch
this
up.
summer.
He did?
He did. He
Well,
turned
bravo.
16 and he did it.
Well, thank you. Tell him I am hugely impressed.
Can you talk about developing the format of the show and why strays from more true documentarian format?
Well, you know what? I think that the reason we chose the episodes we chose from the podcast was they are really about people, in many cases, a family. Not in every case. Well, and actually, in almost all the cases, it's about a family. So we wanted people to be able to engage with what was happening to the people and how it affected them and their loved ones. Which, if you're just, telling a series of different historical facts, doesn't have that same appeal, and and doesn't allow you to have the investment in the characters that the scripted component allows you. So that was a very important decision. It's why we had a scripted showrunner, but Glenn and his team of writers wrote the episode, including what would be animated and what would be archival. And as we went along, we augmented that. But it was always the format from the very beginning.
And what about the mixed media aspect? Choosing what to animate and what to...
Well, I mean, obviously we created a recipe for how we wanted to introduce each episode. We had to change it up because, if you're dealing with the 1500s, you're not going to have archival footage, you're not going to have photographs. So bringing that to life is going to be a little bit different from something that, takes place in the late 1800s or the 1900s. We wanted to use the animation to sort of set the stage. It's a visual medium. It's not talking heads. And it could be art directed to communicate the right type of sort of creepiness and unnerving imagery that you can get with the scripted.
Because it's just one episode and it's a standalone story, do you find that the actors are coming out of the woodworks wanting to be a part of it? Because this is really the first 6 episodes have attracted so much talent already.
Yes. The great thing is, because it's not committing to possibly the next 7 years of your life, you can say, you'll be done this week. You get to play. You get, like Holland may have told you, it was so exciting for her to play a real life character and to play someone who wasn't American and do an accent, to the point that the Irish actor who was acting opposite her thought she was Irish. So that's fantastic. So these are opportunities that a lot of actors don't get, and not, because we had nothing to show them, we couldn't say, yeah, this is really successful. You can look at this. Trust us, Instead we had to say, just trust us. Trust us. We know what we're doing. It'll work. But they're reading a script in which, a lot of the material doesn't involve them or their story at all. So they had to take the leap with us.
Well, most of them said that they had complete faith in you.
Oh, good.
What made them very excited.
But Robert wanted us to pitch that you should bring some of the cast back every year.
Oh, yes, we can. We absolutely can. That's the great thing about this, is in an anthology they can play entirely different characters in different episodes. I mean, the looks, I think, were so transforming. You really didn't think that, this was, that was the guy from T2, playing the T1000 in this episode.
So what about the podcast fans? What do you think they found in this TV show?
What do I think
they found? Like, they'd be surprised with something?
Well, I think yes. I think that every aspect of it is surprising. Who could have predicted one of the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula, where he came across it? That to me was just remarkable. You think he just went to, Vlad the Impaler in Transylvania, but it's much more nuanced than that. And it also, I think the fact of, these are stories that happen to real people. The consequences of trying to explain something that at the time seemed so supernatural, or didn't have an explanation, or didn't have a solution, that they came up with very complex mythology, like how to deal with a changeling, and there are very specific rules on how to deal with a changeling. None of them good. So I think it's fascinating, especially I think that people love to learn something new. In The Walking Dead, they learn how to survive a zombie apocalypse, and they get to examine who would they be if they were thrust into those circumstances? And I think the same thing can be said for lore. You can look at the characters in those episodes and say, how would I have responded if I didn't know that, what was causing this disease and how to cure it? Would I be one of the people fighting against it, or would I be one of the people insisting that someone try a very disconcerting and, altogether noxious cure?
Is there anything you're particularly hoping that you get to do, assuming you get more than one series?
There's some podcasts that we've talked about that are really disconcerting. Some of them more contemporary, and others that really go into the deep, distant lore. And when you consider that here we are in 2017, and we begin streaming on Friday the 13th, which is still part of, there's no 90% of the buildings, probably 95% of the buildings don't have a 13th floor.
Right.
So if you think about how far have we really come, that 13 is a number we're so terrified about. And I'd certainly love to explore that superstition in an upcoming episode. And scary dolls. We've done scary dolls, but as we've seen, scary dolls and scary clowns, there is just no limit to.
Oh yeah. Did you see it?
Yes. Clowns have always scared me. So yeah.
How about Annabelle? Did you see Annabelle?
I haven't seen Annabelle. Yes.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Scary dolls. It works every time.
I know.
Every time.
So
we were just talking. Did you go to the experience?
yes.
Yeah, I went down there, and yeah.
Did you see the doll that turns its head and the one that raises its arm? Because if you didn't, you have to go back and look for
I
it.
didn't see her.
Uh-oh.
Her eyes were closed and she was running.
I was just like, I don't want a picture. What if it moves?
I have to say I did not take a picture with Robert. I didn't either. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not pushing my luck. I know it's not the real Robert, but Robert may not like his facsimile, so.
Yeah. Excellent.
I saw the movie Dolls when I was a kid, and I was so nice to all my dolls after that. Just stay. Yeah, I had never heard that story before of Robert, so I'm excited to see that.
And now you can go to the museum, and you can read all the letters from people who said, "I'm really sorry that I took your photo without asking your permission. I've had really bad luck since then." Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anytime.